Good morning. Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. Former President Trump's so-called hush money trial gets underway in New York. We bring you all the takeaways from day one of Trump's first criminal trial.
Israel says it will respond to Iran's unprecedented weekend attack as its war cabinet convenes to weigh what comes next. This while the U.S. and other G7 countries look to ease tensions using diplomatic means.
House Speaker Mike Johnson taking action on wartime aid for Israel and Ukraine. More on a new aid package and what's unique about it.
The Biden administration will award up to $6.4 billion in grants to Samsung to expand its chip production. The host of NTD's Business Matters explains what's behind the move.
FBI agents board the crashed cargo ship that brought down the Baltimore bridge in a new investigation. Divers recover 2 more bodies of victims killed in the disaster as the city weighs its legal actions.
The Supreme Court rules on an Idaho law banning cross-sex procedures and puberty blockers for minors. Find out what they decided and what happens next.
An author, a mother, and a wife. One woman details the struggles and challenges she faced to care for her husband after the diagnosis of a devastating illness and what she learned throughout the process.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, April 16th.
Yeah, and according to the New York Times, not a single juror was picked on day one of Trump's criminal trial. What does that tell you?
Right, exactly. And interestingly enough, this time news media outlets outnumbered Trump supporters near the courthouse.
Yeah, that is surprising. He usually has a lot of people turning out for these kinds of events.
Right, so topping the news today, former President Trump's first criminal trial got underway yesterday.
Finding a fair and impartial jury in the so-called hush money trial is proving difficult.
Trump is accused of falsifying records as part of a scheme to pay off adult film actress Stormy Daniels. She alleged that Trump had an affair with her, a charge Trump denies.
More than half of the first batch of potential jurors were dismissed after answering questions about their backgrounds and whether they have strong feelings on Trump.
Jury selection will continue today and is expected to take at least a week.
Trump was involved little in yesterday's proceedings as his attorneys debated prosecutors over what evidence could be used during the trial. Here's more.
It was a told you so moment for former President Trump's lawyers on Monday as more than 50 potential jurors in Trump's first criminal trial were excused. Trump's lawyers argued he would not get a fair trial in Manhattan. Many potential jurors were dismissed after admitting they had strong feelings about Trump, one way or the other.
I think it played out with respect to jury selection almost exactly as we expected. When you've had wall-to-wall media coverage in, frankly, the media capital of the world, on a case like this for as long as you've had it, it's going to be very tough to find people who can come into the courtroom without preconceived biases about the evidence, about the law.
Another Trump attorney asked for additional time to weed out potential biased jurors, a request granted by the judge and the DA's office. Jury selection is expected to take up to a week, and this could drag it out further. Though Trump was not the center of attention on Monday, prosecutors asked Judge Merchan to fine the former president $3,000 for allegedly violating his gag order. They pointed to several social media posts Trump made, in which he called former lawyer-turned-witness Michael Cohen a sleazebag, and posted a letter from Stormy Daniels in which she denies having an affair with Trump. Daniels has since stated the letter was not true. Much of day one revolved around deciding on the evidence that could be admitted during the trial. In a victory for the prosecution, Judge Merchan allowed Karen McDougal to testify. She's another actress who said Trump had an affair with her. Meanwhile, Judge Merchan ruled Trump's infamous Access Hollywood tape cannot be used in court. He said the recordings in which Trump can be heard making derogatory comments about women are very prejudicial. Merchan said the allegations of sexual assault arising from them are based on rumors. Trump's lawyers requested the trial pause for a day next month so Trump can attend his son's high school graduation. Judge Merchan did not rule on the request, saying it depends on how we're doing on time and where we are in the trial. Leaving the courthouse at the end of the day, Trump called the trial a scam and a political witch hunt.
If you read all of the legal pundits, all of the legal scholars today, there's not one that I see that said this is a case that should be brought or tried.
The White House would not comment on the ongoing trial.
I just want to be super mindful and not comment on an ongoing case, even if it's asking an opinion about the historic nature of what's happening and what's going to occur in the next couple of weeks. So do want to be mindful. And he happens to be, as you just said, a candidate, a presidential candidate for 2024. So going to be mindful. The president's going to continue to focus on the week ahead.
Meanwhile, a handful of supporters and opponents of Trump clashed outside the Manhattan courthouse. This trial is one of 4 criminal cases Trump is currently facing. The trial for Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents is set for May 20th, though Trump's lawyers are working to delay it.
We have more analysis coming up, but first, Israel's military chief says Israel will respond to Iran's weekend strikes, with the war cabinet weighing its next steps. The U.S. is urging caution, recusing itself from retaliation.
Many world leaders are now calling for restraint, including France, Germany, and the UK. Here's Israel's military chief yesterday.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions. We will choose our response accordingly. The IDF remains ready to counter any threat from Iran and its terror proxies as we continue our mission to defend the State of Israel.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. is coordinating a diplomatic response with G7 members to ease tensions.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby declined to say if President Biden asked Netanyahu to use restraint in responding to Iran's attack. Kirby says the U.S. does not want a war with Iran or a regional conflict. He says it's up to Israel how to respond.
Biden said yesterday he's committed to preventing the Israel-Hamas war from spreading. The president said he is focused on Israel's security and working out a ceasefire and hostage deal.
Meanwhile, 2 anonymous Israeli sources told CNN that Israel has delayed plans to start a ground offensive in Rafah this week as it considers its response to Iran.
And joining us now for some analysis on this is Cameron Hamilton. He is a former Navy SEAL and a Republican congressional candidate for Virginia's 7th District. Good morning, Cameron. Good to see you. Now, sources say that Israel's response may be imminent. What do you think is it weighing right now in terms of how to respond?
So, good morning and thank you for having me. I think Israel right now is trying to calculate how much forces they divert to this conflict or to this geographical region versus pulling from other areas. They're still engaging in a protracted war with Gaza, and they're also looking at the possibility of further conflict on the northern front, again towards Lebanon and towards Syria. So it's a difficult balance to kind of hold in the fray here. I would say that Israel is likely staging, preparing, and going to do something from a remote perspective. They have pretty advanced aviation capabilities, very, very advanced rocket capabilities. So I imagine it would probably be targeted towards their aircraft infrastructure or these bases where drones are launched from in Iran.
So what would you say Israel would actually be able to gain if it would strike back versus what would Israel be risking, because the U.S. already had said that it would not involve itself in it?
Right. This is a conflict between Israel and Iran. I think that from a strategic perspective, Israel's objective is to ensure that events like this don't happen again. Their principal concern is ensuring that their citizens are safe and that they're free from attack from other aggressors, either within their state or outside their state. So that will be the first effort, is to ensure that the infrastructure used to launch such an attack as what we've seen is not capable of being conducted again without significant overhaul or repairs. Number 2, I do think that a strong message to act as a deterrent would be appropriate for Israel. So there might be likely a few other ancillary targets or other resources that are targeted by Israel as a result of this action, so as to deter Iran from engaging in further hostilities.
Okay, so tell me more about what the recent events say about Israel's and the U.S.'s deterrence ability, and how significant is that really for the stability in the Middle East?
Well, unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of the sectarian divides make some form of agreements on their unity in this region. I think Iran is a bad faith actor. The people of Iran are wonderful, but the government of Iran is incredibly corrupt and incredibly authoritarian. So what we see right now, the more international conflict in this region, the only benefit, or the only entity that really benefits, is Iran and some of their proxies. As Israel engages in response, again, much of the United Arab world does pour in a tremendous amount of support in condemning Israel's actions. So I think the further bloodshed, further mayhem, further conflict only stands to support Iran in a potential to broker greater international engagement. I think this is unfortunately what they've tried time and time again, and that's what I suspect is being conducted here. Israel is in a very difficult balance because the more they respond, the more they will engage in international retribution or condemnation for their actions when they have every appropriate right to do so. So it's almost a catch-22. It's really not a winning scenario at all. The entity that makes out better is Iran, unfortunately.
Okay, well, so also there is different opinions on this. So I want to ask you about what you think, especially with maybe information about the weekend strike now. Was Iran intending to do significant damage with that attack or not?
That's difficult to say. I think they had some. I also know that using a large-scale drone attack with many different systems across large geographical regions is fairly easy to detect. Israel has some of the most advanced intelligence networks and also, technologies that we use to track aircraft and nefarious activities like this. So I don't know what Iran's ultimate goal was. I do think that they wanted to harm Israel and send a message, again, to elevate the conflict in this region, which in my opinion does elevate the status that Iran is being persecuted by Israel, even though they've instigated the attack. Time will tell and see, but my suspicion is it's more of a nuisance to distract Israel from activities that they have going on in Gaza, and to also potentially distract Israel from what might be at some point conflict opening up on the northern front. Right now, it looks like the northern front along Lebanon has not engaged in full-fledged activities and warfare. That may change in the near future, and I believe Iran is trying to probe and see what Israel's defense capabilities are for future attacks down the road.
All right, understood. Thank you so much, Cameron Hamilton, for your extensive insights on this.
Thank you for having me.
The White House urging de-escalation as Israel weighs its response to Iran's weekend attack. That's as President Biden, in his first remarks after the strikes, insists the U.S. remains committed to Israel's security. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao brings us the latest.
And President Biden reassuring U.S. commitment to Israel's security while vowing to stop the war from getting even wider.
The United States is committed to Israel's security. We're committed to a ceasefire that will bring the hostages home and preventing conflict from spreading beyond what it already has.
Those remarks came as Biden's meeting with the Prime Minister of Iraq on Monday. That's as tensions are growing in the Middle East after Iran on Saturday launched over 300 drones toward Israel, though most of which intercepted by Israel and its allies, including the U.S. The White House on Monday denying reports that Iran gave the U.S. an early warning or meant for the attack to fail.
Given the scale of this attack, Iran's intent was clearly to cause significant destruction and casualties. This whole narrative out there that Iran passed us a message with what they were going to do is ridiculous.
While President Biden is touting how the U.S. and partners, quote, defeated Iran's attack, the administration said it would not participate if Israel decides to strike back. That to prevent a war between the U.S. and Iran.
Why is the U.S. not going to participate in a counteroffensive?
We're not looking for a war with Iran. We're not looking to broaden and deepen this conflict in the region.
The IDF said on Monday that Iran's attack over the weekend will be, quote, met with a response. While the White House says it's not involved in Israel's decision-making process, it also declines to say if President Biden, during a Sunday call, told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to exercise restraint while responding. Reporting by Iris Tao, NTD News.
House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday unveiled a new proposal for passing wartime aid for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the elaborate plan, which breaks the aid package into separate votes.
The Republican speaker huddled with fellow GOP lawmakers Monday evening to lay out his strategy to gain House approval for the funding package. Johnson was facing mounting pressure to address funding for Israel and Ukraine amidst worsening situations in both conflicts.
We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will.
Facing an outright rebellion from conservatives fiercely opposed to aiding Ukraine, Johnson said he would push to get the package to the House floor under a single debate rule. The Speaker then plans to hold separate votes on aid for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and several foreign policy proposals.
It really was the will of my colleagues to vote on these measures independently and not have them all sandwiched together as the Senate had done.
U.S. aid has been delayed by Johnson's unwillingness to consider a $95 billion bipartisan bill the Senate passed in February, including $14 billion for Israel as well as $60 billion for Ukraine. Also included were billions to strengthen allies in the Indo-Pacific, where China is becoming more assertive, and for international humanitarian aid. Johnson said the new House bills provide roughly the same amount of foreign aid as the Senate bill, but would include differences, including some aid in the form of a loan. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene says she is firmly against the plan as it stands right now.
This is such a scam, and people are so done with it. People care about actions.
Republicans aim to release legislative text as early as Tuesday morning, but will observe a 72-hour review period before voting. Johnson said votes on passage could come late on Friday. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
The House yesterday voted to pass a controversial surveillance bill and send it to the Senate.
The vote came after deliberations over an amendment pushed by members concerned with privacy and civil liberties.
The amendment to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or Fisa, would have added a warrant requirement under Section 702.
This section allows the U.S. government to conduct wireless surveillance of non-U.S. citizens on foreign soil without a warrant. Proponents of the amendment say this kind of surveillance often sweeps up communications from Americans as well.
However, the amendment failed to pass with a tied vote. The House yesterday agreed to send the bill to the Senate without the warrant requirement.
The bill will be challenged in the Senate by both hardline conservatives and progressives who wish to see stronger reforms. Democratic Senator Ron Wyden is a longtime champion of internet privacy. He said he will do everything in his power to stop the bill from passing. Groups of Gaza protesters caused traffic disruptions in cities across the U.S. yesterday, some blocking access to airports. Police in California say they arrested around 20 people who stopped traffic on the Golden Gate Bridge. A few demonstrators chained themselves to parked cars. Videos shared online show protesters with Free Palestine signs blocking an access road to O'Hare International Airport in Chicago. Similar scenes played out at Seattle Airport, where police say dozens of arrests were made. People were filmed walking to terminals to catch their flights. Police in Oregon and Florida say they also broke up disruptive protests.
And here in New York City, pro-Hamas protesters are also taking to the streets.
Videos of protesters wearing Hamas headbands and swinging the Hamas flag were posted on X yesterday. Some protesters ruthlessly criticized the U.S. verbally and burned American flags. Stay with us. No Access Hollywood tape alleged defiance of the gag order and drawn-out jury selection. Takeaways from former President Trump's first day in criminal court in his New York business records trial.
FBI agents open a new investigation into the Baltimore bridge collapse. Divers recovered 2 more bodies of victims killed in the disaster as the city weighs legal actions.
Does shopping for bladder control products have you feeling like you need someone to be on the lookout for you? Now you have your privacy back. We're HDIS, and we home deliver bladder control products directly to you. We're always on the lookout for you. You get free shipping in plain, unmarked boxes. So your private matters stay private. We understand how you feel. For over 35 years, we've delivered bladder control products to millions of Americans, just like you. You don't have to worry about incontinence any longer. Call now for your free product sample pack and over $45 in money-saving coupons. At HDIS, we're always in stock. We carry all brands in hundreds of styles and sizes. You'll be sure to get what you need, guaranteed.
For your free sample pack with your free catalog and $45 in money-saving coupons and free product samples, call 800-701-6159. That's 800-701-6159.
بیست و سه سال 16 سال عمري ما هفت
اما داعش کردیم برانبر خشک و دایکانی ازدی ما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت لعراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با و حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
مریم بو او هفت روز من بو و داعش از کرد تامبوم كرا قوتينيز قريا بما متشكر بهار فيدان نبو باوان رحم نبو قدامنا سؤالان من خادران نزر باوان نفستم بس وانا قوبس ناش بجوش باش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبري تي حملي زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبري
وحشیگریه که توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
Thanks for staying with us. We continue with the coverage of former President Trump's first criminal case jury selection in New York.
Yeah, his first criminal trial. It's history in the making for sure. The judge in Trump's so-called hush money trial denied permission for Trump to go to D.C. next week when arguments on his presidential immunity will be made.
New York law requires Trump to be present for the duration of his trial unless he has special permission from the judge. And Justice Merchant told Trump's lawyers he could understand Trump's eagerness to attend the U.S. Supreme Court hearing on April 25th, but ultimately ordered Trump to stay in New York.
Merchant did not decide on another request from Trump to pause the trial next month so he can attend his son's high school graduation.
After the court adjourned, Trump criticized Merchant and called the trial a scam.
The so-called hush money case is the first of Trump's criminal cases to go to trial, and jury selection is proving to be difficult. More than half the potential jurors were dismissed on day one because they admitted to having strong opinions on Trump. And breaking down Trump's first day in court in his New York criminal trial is Bradley Devlin, a political editor for the American Conservative. Bradley, we really do appreciate your insight this morning. Jury selection's already underway, as we mentioned, and it's going to last about a week. 45 jurors were dismissed right off the bat. Trump's attorney is asking for more time to question jurors. Is this a reflection of the difficulty of trying to find an unbiased jury in Manhattan?
Yeah, and I think everyone's kind of admitted that they're not going to find an unbiased jury, right? They're trying to find folks who are fighting those biases as much as possible. You saw a large number of the jurors called in that just dismissed themselves right off the bat, just raised their hand and said, I cannot be unbiased here. And they walked out. A few others have been dismissed too as they filled out a 42-question questionnaire. This is the former president that we're talking about. We're in uncharted territory here. You don't think anyone in Manhattan doesn't have an opinion on the former president? Of course they do. And that's what makes it so difficult, I think, for Trump's defense, is that they are dealing with a district where Trump lost Manhattan 85% to 15 in 2020.
Right,
So
and these
they-
New Yorkers,
they
they've been
need to lean
exposed.
on-
Yeah, they've been exposed to the defamation trial and also the New York civil fraud trial that Attorney General Letitia James brought on. The defense is trying to slow things down. They're taking note of each issue so that they can appeal. Is this going to work to their advantage, or are there any drawbacks to this approach?
Well, Judge Merchan has sided against Trump quite a lot in the run-up to this. Obviously, he won't be able to go to Barron's graduation. He'll have to be seated in the courtroom. If he misses anything, they said he'll get arrested. So I think Merchan is wanting to move this along quite quickly. Of course, the Trump team's goal is to delay this until after the election. That seems like this is going to be the only trial in which we hear a verdict prior to the election. The problem for Bragg, though, and the prosecutors, is that this is probably the most far-fetched and flimsy case against Donald Trump in the lead up to the 2024 election.
So Bradley, DA Bragg, he accuses Trump of violating this gag order, and he wants him fined $3,000. And that's due to Trump's social media posts. And in one of them, he criticized Trump's former attorney and soon-to-be witness, Michael Cohen. Is that fair?
Oh, I don't think it's fair at all. I mean, these are people who campaigned on going after the former president. And now they're saying, oh, well, you can't say anything bad about what we're doing, but let us go out into the press and destroy your reputation, right? Because that's what this is all about. It's to destroy Trump's reputation, hopefully get a conviction, but destroy Trump's reputation in the minds of the American people and lead to a Biden victory in 2024. I don't know if there's any way that you can actually effectively put a muzzle on all of the crazy players in this trial. I mean, this is going to be a trial of the century. It's going to be a show trial. It's going to be a bit of a clown show. And so I think it's wishful thinking that everyone is just going to play their cards close to their chest and stay quiet. That's just not how the former president operates, and it's certainly not how DA Bragg has operated in the past. So I think within reason, they're going to let these people, despite these gag orders, kind of be a little bit flexible in that arrangement.
And Bradley, if you remember back to 2018, Stormy Daniels denied having an affair with Trump, and she later rescinded that letter. And Trump posted that on social media recently, and that was another one of the reasons why they said that he was violating this gag order. Just in 10 seconds here, do you think not having the Access Hollywood tape is going to make any difference?
I don't think it's going to make any difference because Merchan, even though he hasn't allowed them to play the tape, he's allowed prosecutors to describe the tape and talk about two other cases of alleged sexual misconduct against the former president that aren't involved in the case. The only issue that is involved in the case is the Stormy Daniels one, but he's letting them go a little bit broader while not allowing the prosecutors to actually try to find evidence of further sexual misconduct. So it's a weird balancing act that Judge Merchan is trying to strike here.
Well, thank you so much for the analysis this morning. Bradley Devlin, political editor for the American Conservative.
Thank you.
President Biden and his wife Jill on Monday released tax returns, together earning just under $620,000.
This came mostly from the president's $400,000 salary and pensions from previous jobs.
The First Lady also earned $86,000 from her position as a professor at Northern Virginia Community College.
The Bidens paid more than $146,000 in income tax, which equates to a tax rate of 23.7%.
The White House issued a statement saying it believes all Oval Office occupants should be honest with the American people. That's a reference to the long-standing tradition of presidents publicly releasing their tax returns.
It's also a dig at former President Trump, who bucked tradition by not releasing them.
The FBI opened a criminal probe into the Baltimore bridge collapse yesterday.
Local officials say a fourth body was recovered from the disaster site. 2 bodies are still missing.
And meanwhile, workers continue to clear wreckage to restore traffic to the Baltimore port nearly 3 weeks after the cargo ship Dali destroyed the bridge. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has the latest on the aftermath.
The FBI said agents boarded the cargo ship Dali on Monday for a court-authorized investigation into the crash. An FBI spokesperson gave no other information and said the Bureau will not comment further. Authorities say divers found a missing construction vehicle Monday and recovered the body of a 4th victim. The collapse last month killed 6 workers after the cargo ship lost power and crashed into a support pylon, bringing the bridge down. The bodies of 2 victims are still missing. The National Transportation Safety Board told Congress last week its investigators had interviewed the Dolly's key crew members as part of a separate probe. Safety investigators have recovered the ship's black box recorder. The device keeps data on position, speed, heading, radar, alarms, as well as radio and bridge audio. The NTSB says its investigation is focused on the engine room. Attorneys for 2 of the victims' families and 1 survivor started their own investigation Monday. Meanwhile, the city of Baltimore says it hired 2 law firms as it considers legal actions against the ship's owner, charterer, and operator. The ship's owner, Grace Ocean Private Limited, and manager, Synergy Marine Group, filed a petition in federal court this month asking for a $43 million limit on potential liability payouts. Authorities have opened 2 temporary channels to allow some ships to move past the wreckage. The Army Corps of Engineers says it expects to clear a new channel by the end of the month. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
Coming up, an immigration judge ignored an ICE detainer request and released an illegal immigrant charged with rape of a minor in January.
Deportation officers say they've now arrested him again, citing a possible threat to public safety. New York City crime, women sucker punched, crimes of opportunity, repeat offenses, and cops afraid to do their job, fearing prosecution. A former officer says police can handle the bad guys, they just need support from residents. Stay tuned.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Did you know dragging chains can spark a wildfire?
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back. ICE Boston says officers have arrested an illegal immigrant charged with raping a minor in Massachusetts.
ICE says officers first arrested the Brazilian national and his parents in 2021 after crossing into the U.S. illegally.
An immigration judge released the family on an order of recognizance. Police arrested the 20-year-old man in January on charges of rape and enticement of a child under 16.
But ICE says a district court ignored the detainer request and released the suspect on $5,000 bail.
ICE says deportation officers took the suspect into custody near the end of last month.
The ICE Boston director warned of the threat to children in the community and said the agency will always prioritize public safety. More robberies in New York City, about 5% more in January, according to the NYPD. Crimes of opportunity are more common, while out-of-control shoplifting and disturbing random violence are gripping the city. What's to blame? Dean Galemis, a former NYPD officer and the founder of Global Security and Investigative Services, says bail reform, sanctuary city policies, and a lack of support for police.
Well, for the first time in recent memory, I think we have chaos on the streets of New York. It reminds me of my time as a rookie police officer in the Bronx in the early 90s when we had the crack epidemic going on. I believe the migrant crisis plays a huge role in this. We have people who we don't know anything about them living in New York. We have robberies. We have assaults. Assaults are up. Last year, 2023, New York City had a historic number of assaults. 28,000, I believe the number was, 28,000 assaults. And when you factor in that only about 40% of all assaults are reported to the police, that puts that number around 70,000 assaults, which is catastrophic, really.
That is just absolutely reprehensible. Dean, 14 women since mid-March have reported being punched by strangers in the seemingly random acts of violence. Is there anything that the NYPD can do to work with communities or other agencies to help bring this kind of violence to an end?
Well, I think they did. The NYPD is, first of all, the NYPD is probably the finest law enforcement agency in the United States. Not probably, definitely. They know how to get crime down. The city legislator, they need to unhandcuff the NYPD. There's been a lot of instances of something called the knockout game, where young kids just sucker punch a random stranger and try to knock him out. That was happening a lot on subways. And last month, the NYPD redeployed over 1,000 officers into the subway system. And surprise, surprise, the numbers of crimes plummeted. The NYPD knows what it's doing. It knows how to handle these problems. We just have to let them do it. We have to make the police feel that we have their backs. That's another problem. You know, law enforcement, police officers in New York City lost something called qualified immunity 2 years ago, which basically bars them from being sued personally for any acts they make in their role as a police officer. Cops are scared to death of being sued. Frivolous lawsuits can cost a cop his whole livelihood.
Yeah, police need to be able to do their job without fear of losing it. And Governor Hochul, she started to bring a larger police presence in response to some of that. And we talk about the migrant crisis. We saw that brazen attack by migrants on NYPD officers trying to make an arrest in Times Square near one of those shelters there. How is that complicating all this?
It is a major problem. New York City, as we know, is a sanctuary city. They have a policy of not cooperating with immigrations and customs enforcement, which we call ICE. They're barred from entering. ICE is barred from entering New York City migrant shelters. So if they have a pedophile, a felon, someone convicted of a violent crime, they're not allowed to go into the shelter and arrest them. The city will not let them. The NYPD is barred from cooperating with ICE by city policy. It's absurd. It's absurd.
Dean Galemis, former NYPD police officer and founder of the Global Security and Investigative Services, thank you so much for this update.
Thanks so much, Kevin.
The Supreme Court on Monday let an Idaho law that criminalizes cross-sex procedures for minors broadly take effect. The ruling comes after a federal judge blocked it as unconstitutional. Idaho's governor signed the law last year. It makes it a felony to provide cross-sex procedures and puberty blocker drugs to minors. Healthcare professionals can face up to 10 years in prison for providing procedures and drugs that are inconsistent with a child's biological sex. In February, the state filed an emergency request to block an order from a lower court that stopped implementation of the law. Monday's high court ruling allows Idaho to enforce the law while the lower courts deal with questions related to the issue. Lawyers for teenagers who identify as another gender have challenged the legislation. They say cross-sex procedures can alleviate gender dysphoria. And up next, the Biden administration will award up to $6.4 billion in grants to Samsung to expand its chip production in the U.S. to reduce reliance on China. That and more with the host of Business Matters.
Lawyers for Elon Musk's ex said they will comply with a Brazilian court's orders. A big U-turn after Musk earlier vowed not to obey, citing freedom of speech.
اما داعش کردیان برانبر خوشکو دایکانی ازدی اما کاری که دور لهمو چمک دموکراسی و موافقانی مرو و انسانیت او بارو خی که است های به تایبت عراق و سوریه بشه که دگرت و با حالانه که اداره اوباما کرد
ریم بو او هفت روز بو و داعش اسکرد تامبون کرا قوتینیز گریا بما متشکر به هر پیدن نبو باوان رحم نبو ودمنا سوالم من خادران نزر باوان وستم بس نه قبس ناش بيجوش بانش.
They would literally be auctioned in front of soldiers, and then the soldiers begin to bid.
زارود وان همو جيبري تي حمري زارود الدم واسسي وان همو جيبري
وحشگریه کی توا عیاره ظلمی که یک جار زور گوره لما افرطانه کرا و تعدایی که زور زوریان لیده که همانه روزانه دست فروشیده.
Imagine being a child, having a child mentality, and these evil people come and wheel you away from the only safety you've ever known.
The 2024 NTD 9th International Chinese Vocal Competition is scheduled to take place at Merkin Hall, Kaufman Music Center in New York from September 18th to 21st. The competition specially invites vocalists from the world-famous Shen Yun Performing Arts to serve as judges. The prestigious Gold Award is $10,000. Chinese vocal artists aged 18 to 50 are welcome to register.
Hey Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
Thanks for staying with us. We have NTD's Business Matters host, Don Ma, with us now for the latest updates from the financial world.
All right, Don, let's talk about microchips.
Yes, let's talk about them. It seems like the Biden administration is going to be writing a $6 billion check to Samsung Electronics, and this is for its computer chip manufacturing and research facilities in Texas. So let me explain here. The U.S. is working to revive the production of advanced computer chips domestically. This comes as, of course, competition over advanced technology has escalated between the US and notably China, right? And this has become a national security concern as well. And the goal here is to reduce reliance on China and potentially as well as Taiwan, as the US global share of semiconductor manufacturing capacity has really fallen in the past decades. So in 1990, it was 37%. Now in 2020, it was only 12%. This is according to the Semiconductor Industry Association. And Samsung said it expects to begin production at the new facilities in 2026. And according to some analysts, their estimates of Samsung being likely to be making 4 nanometer chips at its pilot production line and eventually expand to 2 nanometer chips, which is very advanced.
Right. Wow. Like we found out definitely during the pandemic, I mean, definitely important to reduce that reliance. But also on top of that, the Commerce Department was saying it will create more than 17,000 construction jobs and 4,500 manufacturing jobs, which is great. So staying on that related topic, jobs, tell me more about how the average American is doing financially.
Yeah, it comes amid an important time with the stress within the economy. So it's no surprise that according to government data, Americans are saving less these days. The personal saving rate fell to 3.6% in February. And by the way, this is the lowest level in more than a year. Now, as to why most people are saving less, well, there are a lot of factors here, and I'll just mention a couple of them. It could be just a continuation of a long-term trend, and that trend is that historically Americans tend to save less after a recession, but there are other factors at play here as well. For example, pandemic-related stimulus plus a lack of spending during shutdowns caused savings to build up during the pandemic, and then the strong job market also gave people more money to shell out, and resulting in what economists call a structurally lower savings rate.
And on that, an economist at Wells Fargo says that this makes families a little bit more vulnerable to a shock to the housing market, to the household market, but it just household sector, but it just does add a little bit of a boost to the economy. So kind of two things going on there. Next, how's Trump's social media company doing?
Yeah, I mean, always interesting to talk about Trump. So it seems like at least Trump Media and Technology Group stock plummeted 15% Monday after the company announced a massive offering of new shares. The company went public last month, as we remember, and the stock value skyrocketed higher, leading to that initial public offering. But it lost somewhere around 60% of its value from its peak, that is, on March 26th. And a new stock offering now could help the struggling company stay afloat. But also there's a catch here. This new offering of 21.5 million shares would decrease the value of the current shares. Trump himself has lost billions since the company went public, but he still holds billions more in value, that being said.
Well, yeah, but still, like apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, $3 billion of his stake, which is significant to say the least. But shifting gears now to the phone market, tell us more about what's going on with iPhone.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are using iPhones, but it seems like not as much as before compared to how many people are buying them. So according to new data, Apple saw a 10% drop in iPhone sales last quarter, due in large part to slumping sales in China, actually. And this is as the largest market behind the US. China is important to Apple. You know, the company offers discounts to help boost sales, but it hasn't been enough, apparently, to counter various factors driving down Chinese sales in recent months. Samsung, we just talked about it, was the world's top smartphone maker for 12 years straight until last year when Apple actually briefly took the crown from Samsung. That only lasted for 1 quarter though, and now Samsung took the top spot back.
Yeah, and this has taken a lot of experts by surprise that Apple's not giving a lot of boost to its AI development, whereas other companies really are here. We're going to shift gears here, Don. What about these layoffs? What can you tell us?
Yeah, Tesla is also a result of the economy laying off a lot of workers here. So layoffs, according to the Washington Post, Tesla is going to slash 10% of its workforce. And CEO Elon Musk notified an employee yesterday, citing a need to reduce costs and increase productivity. This comes amid, as well, lower demand for electric vehicles. Tesla reported a sharp drop in vehicle deliveries in the first quarter, and its stock lost a third of its value this year. Now, as of December, the company employed 140,000 people. So the layoffs could possibly, involve around 14,000 workers if you do the math with 10% being laid off.
Wow, yeah, it looks like we're not seeing an end so far about the cooling demand for EV in general. So thank you so much, Business Matters host John Ma. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
And lawyers for X reportedly told Brazil's Supreme Court the social media platform will comply with every ruling issued by the court. This after Elon Musk last week said he would challenge a decision ordering X to block certain accounts in Brazil.
Reuters obtained the letter that was addressed to Supreme Court Justice Alexandre de Moraes. It reads, Ex-Brazil informs that all orders issued by this Supreme Court and the Superior Electoral Court will continue to be fully complied with by X Corporation. The move marks a change of stance by X's Brazilian unit, which last week said in a separate document it was not able to control the U.S.-based company's willingness to comply with the Brazilian court's orders. Musk, the owner of X, and a self-declared free speech advocate, previously said he would reverse all restrictions imposed by the Supreme Court justice because they were unconstitutional. He also called on Justice Moraes to resign. Moraes, in response, opened an inquiry into the billionaire for what he called obstruction of justice. Brazil's Supreme Court Chief Justice said that every company operating in the country is subject to the Constitution. A senior member of President Lula's cabinet said the attack on Moraes is unacceptable. Moraes is investigating so-called digital militias that have been accused of spreading disinformation and hate messages during the government of former President Bolsonaro. Last week, Elon Musk said that X received an inquiry from the U.S. House of Representatives regarding actions taken in Brazil that were in violation of Brazilian law. The lawyers for the social media platform told Moraes that X had complied with the committee's request for it to share confidential court documents.
Up next, an author, a mother, and a wife. One woman details the struggles and challenges she faced to care for her husband after the diagnosis of a devastating illness and what she learned through the process. Coming up.
The tempting online world is encroaching on our campus. Is unplugging cables and confiscating phones the solution to protect our children? No, we just need a clean multimedia platform. Join Ganjing Campus to leverage premium channel features, professional development courses, and kindness event toolkits tailored for teachers. Build a truly positive and interactive classroom community. Foster a pure and delightful learning environment for children.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, I have an important message about security. Write down the number on your screen so you can call when I finish. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. This is a lock for your life insurance, a rate lock that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. But be careful. Many policies you see do not have one. But you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. Call this number to learn more. This plan was designed with a rate lock for people on a fixed income who want life insurance that fits their budget and is simple to get. Coverage options start at $9.95 a month, less than 35 cents a day. Act now, and your rate will be locked in for life. It will never increase, guaranteed. This is lifelong coverage that can never be canceled as long as you pay your premiums, guaranteed. And your acceptance is guaranteed, with no health questions. You cannot be turned down because of your health. Call for your information kit and read about this rate lock for yourself. You'll also get a free beneficiary planner. Both are free with no obligation. Don't miss out. Call for information, then decide. Read about the 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. Don't wait. Call this number now.
Call now and you'll also get this free beneficiary planner. Use this valuable guide to record important information and your final wishes, and it's yours free just for calling. So don't wait. Call 1-800-357-4821 for your free information. That's 1-800-357-4821. There's no risk or obligation. That number again is 1-800-357-4821. That's 1-800-357-4821. 1-800-357-4821. Call now.
If you love them enough to suck the snot out of their nose at 4 a.m., then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Hey, good to have you back with us. Next, we want to talk about a deeply moving book. Sarah Cart wrote On My Way Back to You, a memoir to process the challenges and struggles of managing her husband's devastating illness.
Right, and I spoke to Sarah. She told me about the transition to becoming the caregiver of someone that she used to lean on and how amidst everything, she found the strength to come out on the other side.
It's a little heartbreaking, but you work through it. You don't realize until you're in the thick of it that it's the kind of thing that can actually bring you closer. We were lucky because we had time to talk about what the future might be. Even as I was caring for Ben, he was caring for me, helping me prepare for a time when we believed he wouldn't be there. Everything from the really practical stuff about plumbing to the really heavy conversations about bequests and how he would want our 4 sons and me to honor his memory. Heavy conversations, but really meaningful and intimate.
Wow, it's very heartwarming to hear, though, that even that was kind of a partnership and that it was a process that you worked out together. So walk me through your realization, actually, that Ben's health was deteriorating. When did you really know?
Well, the autoimmune was a slow start. You would get diagnoses and then treat them symptom by symptom. It wasn't until it became full-on congestive heart failure that it really was the gut punch that we needed to get to understand where we were and where we were headed. I realized suddenly that my every conversation with him was beginning with my asking what hurts and how can I help. It was exhausting, but he was just, the scientist in him was just fascinated by every step, and the loving partner in him was really concerned about what are you scared of? What can I do to help you be ready for whatever's coming next?
Wow. So you just mentioned also that it brought you closer, if I heard correctly. So what was it that gave you strength during that time also to look at it from such a positive perspective, especially in the beginning during that transition?
A deep well of faith and grit and grace. Those helped me do the work. You find you have to make so many decisions, big and small, everything from what to throw in the hospital go bag to whether or not your loved one is going to be able to come home to this place where you're living because of steps or whatever. It was just grace and the support of family and friends.
How are you striking that balance then? How was it to take care of somebody that you love, but also in the meantime to not neglect yourself? How did you strike that balance?
Not very well. But then again, you have to be kind to yourself. My go-to in stressful times is journaling. And in the midst of this, I extended that practice to including crafting emails to family and friends to keep everybody in the loop. And many of those emails actually turned into the outline for the book. I'm also a big believer in walking and in getting fresh air. Advantage of being in Florida during the COVID situation was that I could get outside. And perhaps in a sign of how incredibly stressed I was. People can't believe it. I actually took up meditating, and that was hugely helpful in that moment.
Well, thank you so much for opening up and telling such a vulnerable story. And I hope people watching this and reading it can find a role model in you similar like you had in your sister-in-law. So thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah Cart.
Evelyn, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to be here.
And I should mention that actually there is a happy ending in her story. Ben, her husband, he made it through. She was actually saying a grieving family gave them a miracle in shape of an organ. So she hopes that more people can do that.
Wow, yeah, that is such good news. And her story is just one of selflessness, meditation, faith, and just being there for her husband.
Yeah,
it's really
exactly.
great.
What a beautiful partnership. All right, we are heading to a quick break on that note, but we'll be right back with more.
NTD News, the fastest growing independent news source in America, bringing you breaking news from around the world. Expert analysis, investigative reporting, and original award-winning documentaries. We're known for our uncensored China coverage you won't find anywhere else. We cover the stories that affect you and shape our world without the political noise. We report from the heart with you in mind. Watch us right here on NTD News.
Good morning and welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Here are today's top stories. Former President Trump's so-called hush money trial gets underway. We're bringing you coverage throughout the day and takeaways from day one.
Israel says it will respond to Iran's unprecedented weekend attack as its war cabinet convenes to weigh what comes next. This while the U.S. and other G7 countries look to ease tensions using diplomatic means.
House Speaker Mike Johnson taking action on wartime aid for Israel and Ukraine. More on a new aid package and what's unique about it.
FBI agents board the crashed cargo ship that brought down the Baltimore bridge in a new investigation. Divers recover 2 more bodies of victims killed in the disaster as the city weighs legal actions.
The official Olympic flame will be lit in Greece today as Paris prepares for the 2024 Games this July. Get a sneak preview of the torch lighting ceremony and some of the Olympic venues.
And an artisan in Bosnia handcrafts unique pipes from ancient wood. Customers from around the world seek out his work. Learn more about one artisan and his decades of dedication to his craft.
This is NTD Good Morning. Live from our global headquarters, here are Evelyn Lee and Kevin Hogan.
Welcome to NTD.
Good morning. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. Today's top news. Israel's military chief says Israel will respond to Iran's weekend strikes with the war cabinet weighing its next steps. The U.S. is urging caution, recusing itself from retaliation.
Many world leaders are now calling for restraint, including France, Germany, and the UK. Here's Israel's military chief yesterday.
Iran will face the consequences for its actions. We will choose our response accordingly. The IDF remains ready to counter any threat from Iran and its terror proxies as we continue our mission to defend the State of Israel.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken says the U.S. is coordinating a diplomatic response with G7 members to ease tensions.
National Security Council spokesman John Kirby declined to say if President Biden asked Netanyahu to use restraint in responding to Iran's attack. Kirby says the U.S. does not want a war with Iran or a regional conflict. He says it's up to Israel how to respond.
Biden said yesterday he's committed to preventing the Israel-Hamas war from spreading. The president said he is focused on Israel's security and working out a ceasefire and hostage deal.
Meanwhile, 2 anonymous Israeli sources told CNN that Israel has delayed plans to start a ground offensive in Rafah this week as it considers its response to Iran. And here to explain more about Iran's attack, we invite Kervin O'Coin. He's the former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army and the host of the Weekend Explained podcast. Kervin, it's great to have you with us here. The Wall Street Journal reported that Saudi Arabia and other Gulf states provided intelligence that was key in disrupting Iran's attack on Israel. Can you explain how all that information is typically gathered and transmitted?
Yeah, definitely. So what happens here is through back channels, you'll get a lot of the intelligence leaderships from these countries to contact their counterparts, and they'll pass that information along. And this was actually calculated. Iran did this themselves because they could not afford to have an escalation here against Israel. So they provided to the Saudis, to the United Arab Emirates, to other countries this information. That information was then passed to the United States, to the Israelis, and that's what you saw during this attack. That's how it was thwarted so well by the Israelis.
Yeah, they were able to get their air defenses up and running in order to anticipate this and take down that attack. Does that say anything more about the support that Israel is receiving in the region?
Yeah, look, it was a miscalculation by Iran to coordinate this type of attack because it shows that now Iran is isolated, where Israel was isolated just a week ago. There was condemnation from the UN, there was condemnation from other sources. Now Israel is the ally in the Middle East, and Iran looks isolated. Even Russia has come out and half-heartedly condemned the attacks that were there. They basically said, you should have provided that to us on Ukraine as opposed to doing what you did with Israel, knowing all of these were going to be destroyed. And we saw 99% of the projectiles used destroyed in this situation.
Yes, very impressive. And some of those interceptors were able to actually go outside of the atmosphere to take down those incoming missiles. Biden's officials are warning that an Israeli response could trigger a wider war here. What do Israel and its partners need to weigh when choosing a counterattack to avoid this?
Well, personally, we've analyzed this as three different types. So you've got de-escalation, which is what the diplomatic realm is trying to do on the international circuit. You've got retaliation, which is what Israel wants to do. And then you have escalation, which is what Iran could do. And right now it looks like retaliation is almost certain. We're at a 99% chance of retaliation from Israel. But that doesn't mean munitions sent to Iran or even the Iranian proxies. That could be cyber attacks. That could be so many different realms of sanctions and things of that nature that could really continue to isolate Iran.
Can you explain a little more about the relative punishment here? Israel supposedly took out Iranian generals, whereas this 300 aerial hardware coming to Israel basically just damaged some buildings here. So what's the comparison?
Yeah, I mean, there is no comparison, but this was the plan all along. Iran knew that if they were going to do this, they could not have widespread damage. They could not have widespread deaths that we've seen in other strikes. They had to be very calculated about this. Now, I do believe that Iran went about it the wrong way. They could have done a more targeted strike on other sites within Israel and maybe didn't have this sort of isolation they have now. Look, Jordan, a country that's been on the fence during this the entire time, came out and opened up their airspace. That is a direct strike towards their relationship with Iran.
Right here, and now we are looking at China and Russia that have reportedly been involved in bolstering up Iran. Are they in some way involved in Iran's apparent retaliation?
Yeah, Iran's talking to the leaders in Russia and China through those same back channels. They're letting them know what they're going to be doing. And honestly, Russia's providing intelligence to Iran by using their Shahid drones in Ukraine over the last 2 years. So this is a very similar style of attack that Russia has used on various sites in Ukraine. And that intelligence is being passed on to the Iranians.
We're Kervin O'Coin, former lead ISR coordinator for the U.S. Army and the host of the Weekend Explained podcast. Thank you for this update.
Thank you.
House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday unveiled a new proposal for passing wartime aid for Israel, Ukraine, and Taiwan.
NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the elaborate plan, which breaks the aid package into separate votes.
The Republican speaker huddled with fellow GOP lawmakers Monday evening to lay out his strategy to gain House approval for the funding package. Johnson was facing mounting pressure to address funding for Israel and Ukraine amidst worsening situations in both conflicts.
We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will.
Facing an outright rebellion from conservatives fiercely opposed to aiding Ukraine, Johnson said he would push to get the package to the House floor under a single debate rule. The speaker then plans to hold separate votes on aid for Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan, and several foreign policy proposals.
It really was the will of my colleagues to vote on these measures independently and not have them all sandwiched together as the Senate had done.
U.S. aid has been delayed by Johnson's unwillingness to consider a $95 billion bipartisan bill the Senate passed in February, including $14 billion for Israel as well as $60 billion for Ukraine. Also included were billions to strengthen allies in the Indo-Pacific, where China is becoming more assertive, and for international humanitarian aid. Johnson said the new House bills provide roughly the same amount of foreign aid as the Senate bill, but would include differences, including some aid in the form of a loan. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene says she is firmly against the plan as it stands right now.
This is such a scam, and people are so done with it. People care about actions.
Republicans aim to release legislative text as early as Tuesday morning, but will observe a 72-hour review period before voting. Johnson said votes on passage could come late on Friday. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
Former President Trump's first criminal trial got underway yesterday.
Finding a fair and impartial jury in the so-called hush money trial is proving difficult.
Trump is accused of falsifying records as part of a scheme to pay off adult film actress Stormy Daniels. She alleged that Trump had an affair with her, a charge that Trump denies.
More than half of the first batch of potential jurors were dismissed after answering questions about their backgrounds and whether they have strong feelings on Trump.
Jury selection will continue today and is expected to take at least a week.
Trump was involved little in yesterday's proceedings as his attorneys debated prosecutors over what evidence could be used during the trial. Here's more.
It was a told you so moment for former President Trump's lawyers on Monday as more than 50 potential jurors in Trump's first criminal trial were excused. Trump's lawyers argued he would not get a fair trial in Manhattan. Many potential jurors were dismissed after admitting they had strong feelings about Trump, one way or the other.
I think it played out with respect to jury selection almost exactly as we expected. When you've had wall-to-wall media coverage in, frankly, the media capital of the world on a case like this for as long as you've had it, it's going to be very tough to find people who can come into the courtroom without preconceived biases about the evidence, about the law.
Another Trump attorney asked for additional time to weed out potential biased jurors, a request granted by the judge and the DA's office. Jury selection is expected to take up to a week, and this could drag it out further. Though Trump was not the center of attention on Monday, prosecutors asked Judge Merchan to fine the former president $3,000 for allegedly violating his gag order. They pointed to several social media posts Trump made, in which he called former lawyer-turned-witness Michael Cohen a sleazebag, and posted a letter from Stormy Daniels in which she denies having an affair with Trump. Daniels has since stated the letter was not true. Much of day one revolved around deciding on the evidence that could be admitted during the trial. In a victory for the prosecution, Judge Merchan allowed Karen McDougal to testify. She's another actress who said Trump had an affair with her. Meanwhile, Judge Merchan ruled Trump's infamous Access Hollywood tape cannot be used in court. He said the recordings in which Trump can be heard making derogatory comments about women are very prejudicial. Merchan said the allegations of sexual assault arising from them are based on rumors. Leaving the courthouse at the end of the day, Trump called the trial a scam and a political witch hunt.
If you read all of the legal pundits, all of the legal scholars today, there's not one that I see that said this is a case that should be brought or tried.
Meanwhile, a handful of supporters and opponents of Trump clashed outside the Manhattan courthouse. This trial is one of 4 criminal cases Trump is currently facing. The trial for Trump's alleged mishandling of classified documents is set for May 20th. Though Trump's lawyers are working to delay it.
And the FBI opened a criminal probe into the Baltimore bridge collapse yesterday.
Local officials say a fourth body was recovered from the disaster site. 2 bodies are still missing.
Meanwhile, workers continue to clear wreckage to restore traffic to the Baltimore port nearly 3 weeks after the cargo ship Dolly destroyed the bridge. NTD's Jeremy Sandberg has the latest on the aftermath.
The FBI said agents boarded the cargo ship Dolly on Monday for a court-authorized investigation into the crash. An FBI spokesperson gave no other information and said the Bureau will not comment further. Authorities say divers found a missing construction vehicle Monday and recovered the body of a 4th victim. The collapse last month killed 6 workers after the cargo ship lost power and crashed into a support pylon, bringing the bridge down. The bodies of 2 victims are still missing. The National Transportation Safety Board told Congress last week its investigators had interviewed the Dolly's key crew members as part of a separate probe. Safety investigators have recovered the ship's black box recorder. The device keeps data on position, speed, heading, radar, alarms, as well as radio and bridge audio. The NTSB says its investigation is focused on the engine room. Attorneys for 2 of the victims' families and 1 survivor started their own investigation Monday. Meanwhile, the city of Baltimore says it hired 2 law firms as it considers legal actions against the ship's owner, charterer, and operator. The ship's owner, Grace Ocean Private Limited, and manager, Synergy Marine Group, filed a petition in federal court this month asking for a $43 million limit on potential liability payouts. Authorities have opened 2 temporary channels to allow some ships to move past the wreckage. The Army Corps of Engineers says it expects to clear a new channel by the end of the month. Jeremy Sandberg, NTD News.
ICE Boston says officers have arrested an illegal immigrant charged with raping a minor in Massachusetts.
ICE says officers first arrested the Brazilian national and his parents in 2021 after crossing into the U.S. illegally.
An immigration judge released the family on an order of recognizance. Police arrested the 20-year-old man in January on charges of rape and enticement of a child under 16.
But ICE says a district court ignored the detainer request and released the suspect on a $5,000 bail.
ICE says deportation officers took the suspect into custody near the end of last month.
The ICE Boston director warned of the threat to children in the community and said the agency will always prioritize public safety. And coming up, the official Olympic flame gets lit in Greece today as Paris prepares for the 2024 Games this July. Get a sneak preview of the torch lighting ceremony and some of the Olympic venues.
An artisan in Bosnia handcrafts unique pipes from centuries-old wood. Customers worldwide seek out his work. Get the whole story when we come back.
A performance that truly matters. For each and every one of us. This is what you've been waiting for. Coming to Lincoln Center, NJ-PAC, State Theater, Purchase, and Stamford. Starting March 28th. Tickets at shenyun.com. Say goodbye to harsh, bitter coffee and hello to a delicious, smooth brew. With specialty quality beans, expertly roasted in-house, you'll taste the difference with every sip. Fermented with a blend of 50 enzymes, Days Coffee delivers a rich brew like no other. Made with the highest grade specialty beans available, you're sure to taste the difference. Elevate your morning with Days Enzyme Fermented Coffee.
I can remember being back in medical school where it was almost a depressing conception of the brain. We're born with so many neurons that peak like around 20, and then it's just a downhill decline from there. But today, we are going to debunk this old way of thinking and use a new technology called the functional MRI PET scanner to show that the brain can be rewired to function much better. caused an almost immediate change. And by better, I mean improved focus, longer attention span, better mood, decreased risk of developing dementia, and an overall better life. So get ready to be surprised and even amazed. This is really exciting information as we explore what is possible, as we talk to thought leaders in the field. I needed to make sure I'm really that guy, okay. See the cutting edge tools they are using to assess the brain and hear from real patients about their dramatic healing process.
That's good.
Being prepared is a part of who you are. But it's especially important in the case of a disaster. Be informed about possible emergencies in your area. Make a plan that covers where you go in an emergency. Build a kit with the things you need to survive. There's no one more capable of planning for your situation than you. Start your plan today. Go to ready.gov/myplan.
Fostering a pet for a friend or neighbor can keep families together. Learn more at petsandpeopletogether.org.
Good to have you back. Final preparations are underway ahead of the 2024 Paris Olympics, beginning on July 26th.
The torch for the Summer Games will be lit today before starting a month-long trek to Paris. Here's the story.
A shiny new aquatic center, bleachers on the Champ de Mars, a purple racetrack around the Stade de France, and a grass pitch are all taking shape as Paris prepares for the Olympics, with about 100 days to go until the Games begin. France aims to show its best to the world, but French President Emmanuel Macron says there is a secondary purpose for hosting the Games.
What we want to do with these games is obviously to welcome the world. We want our athletes to bring us a lot of medals. We want it to be a moment of unprecedented French pride. But we also want it to stay. We want the structures to stay, with the Olympic Village, with this aquatic center. And we want to change the nation's habits and put sport at the heart of our educational project.
Security is a major concern, and France is pulling out all the stops to ensure spectator safety.
So, there is an unprecedented security operation. France has never deployed so many resources for security before. I have confidence in the law enforcement forces in our country to secure these games.
Every 2 years, ceremonies take place at Olympia for the Winter and Summer Games. The ceremony features an interpretation of ancient Greek dance. Women dressed as priestesses are at the heart of the ceremony. Leading the group is Greek actress Mary Mina, performing the role of High Priestess. She will light the torch. The flame is lit using a parabolic mirror to catch the sun's rays. If it's cloudy Tuesday, the flame-lit Monday will be used.
I never imagined I could be in this position, and honestly, somehow a part inside of me, of that young girl who very innocently looked at the High Priestess with such awe, feels a very great and special pleasure, and I, of course, feel that today.
The flame relay will begin in Olympia, Greece. Then the torch begins an 11-day relay through Greece. It gets handed off in Athens before departing for France on board a 3-masted ship. The Olympic flame will arrive in Marseille on May 8th, with up to 150,000 people expected to attend the ceremony. Then the torch winds its way through France for 68 days until it arrives in Paris on July 26th to kick off opening ceremonies.
What a spectacle. Apparently this happened this early this morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, now they're going to make their way more than 3,000 miles to Paris.
Amazing, yeah, and the first torchbearer said it was a great honor.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure it is. The whole world is watching. It's such a centuries-long tradition. So yeah, I think I've seen it even once when I was in Athens, a torch relay. And for people that are wondering if the flame ever goes out, yes, it does sometimes.
Oh.
And then they just relight it with a lantern.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, the torch has to stay lit. And the Olympics, they go back to ancient times. And I mean, they're showcasing the best of the physical abilities of people. So it's really a great spectacle.
Right, absolutely. All right, and we're moving on to northeastern Bosnia. A local artisan there has been handcrafting wooden pipes for decades.
He makes them with fossil wood, and no two creations are the same. Let's take a look.
There's no smoke and mirrors to this artisan craft. Just decades of dedication. Milovan Petrocevic has been making wooden smoking pipes by hand since the 1970s. His pipe dream began in an era when smoking was more common.
Back then, pipes were used quite a lot. They caught my eye, and I decided to start making them. I made them from ordinary wood and just give them to people as presents.
Some of the wood used in his creation can be thousands of years old, preserved after being submerged in water.
I use fossil wood that spent a long time submerged in water. The oak wood I am using right now, I did not have it tested myself, but I know men who did in Zagreb, and it was established that it spent between 6,000 and 7,000 years underwater.
What began as a hobby is now a profession. He has customers, mostly pipe collectors from all over the world.
My pipes sell well in America and Germany. I sold some in Austria as well, and I sell quite a number here, closer to home, in Serbia and Bosnia.
He is very particular about the wood he uses. He sources it from people who retrieve it from rivers and marshes in Bosnia and Serbia. Creating each pipe is a painstaking process. Just the process of carving and sanding alone can take weeks.
Wow, I was wondering where he's sourcing them from. So from Bosnia, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's some dedication right there to perfect your craft.
Definitely, yeah. I was going to say it's perfect into the littlest detail, it looks like, even to the material he uses. And yeah, I wonder if there must be the one of a kind, nowhere else to be found. I've never heard of such a thing.
Yeah, no, I'm not the Surgeon General, but we're not recommending smoking here, though. But it is good to preserve those traditional crafts. There's just so much rich history there.
Exactly, and it must be really hard. I wonder if, if you just make a wrong move, if the whole thing cracks, if you have to start from the beginning. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe there's even like humidity that you have to take into account when dealing with that type of wood. It's really sensitive.
Yeah, questions over questions for us who don't know a thing about woodworking. I mean, I speak for myself. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I'm not a woodworker.
Okay,
no.
All right.
I can look on with appreciation, though.
Yeah, same here. All right, we are wrapping our show up right now, but be sure to stay tuned for NTD's News Today broadcast at 10 a.m. Eastern Time that's coming up.
And for round-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app.
That's right. Thanks for watching. I'm Evelyn Lee.
And I'm Kevin Hogan.
Shen Yun Creations, the streaming platform from Shen Yun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
My name is Peter Lone, and I will be executed in 2 hours. Why am I being executed, you ask? Well, would you like the long story or the short one?
Once a man lost to the night.
Are you a good person? No. If you guys died today, where would you guys go then?
I don't know. How about none of your business? Get lost.
A drug runner walking on the path to destruction. Forced to pay the price for his sins.
I sentenced all of you to death by firing squad.
You're in this rotting jail for one reason and one reason alone. You're discarded pieces of trash.
Shut up! Get in there.
This isn't America. You don't wait 30 years for you to die. Here, we get the job done.
Confronted by anger, surrounded by despair, he stood facing the abyss.
I'll kill you! Do it!
But in the darkest hour, a light shone through. Redemption called his name.
Who among us in this room would like to be saved by Jesus Christ? Please come forward. Accept his blessing.
I found salvation, brother.
He even found love in the most unexpected place.
Care to get lunch with me one of these days?
With time running out,
One-time drug dealer turned pastor.
a man changed by faith
I want you to take over the church.
faces his final test.
Will be executed by firing squad tonight.
What will his last choice be?
Whatever you're saying, I'm not buying.
I'm not selling anything.
You're selling Jesus, no?
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift.